such a power base that we're able to stop the continued despoliation of our lands, the continued exploitation of our peoples and our natural resources by multinationals and, European as well as American, Western governments and so forth. We have to ensure that we eradicate those conditions and circumstances which make it possible for successive generations and modernizations of enslavement to be a reality. So therefore, we recognize that our African maangamizi or Holocaust of enslavement is not over. And therefore our strategy begins from the modern day and we go right back to chattel enslavement. But we look at this continuum of chattel enslavement, colonization or colonial enslavement, and then neo-colonial enslavement today. And if we're honest, we will note that people of African descent continue to be enslaved today. Not just in terms of debt bondage, not just in terms of mental enslavement, but physical enslavement in many parts of the world. And in some places in Africa, African people are actually being enslaved today. So if we, who have come out of a historical diaspora and experience of this, what responsibility do we then have to joining forces with our brothers and sisters on the continent and all over the world? Many of our brothers and sisters in the Americas, Latin America, defined as Afro-descendants. We have a responsibility to them. The Europeans who have devised this global system of white supremacy are very much cognizant of the fact that we are disunited even in our approach. So they will have us thinking that we can get somehow some measure of justice in one section. But then do we recognize that that may be also to the exclusion of others elsewhere? So brothers and sisters, what we're looking at here in the United Kingdom, after Tony Blair's statement of regret and after the apology that came from the Church of England, is really, really holding this British government to account, as well as the church and all those multinationals, NGOs, foreign corporations that are part of the continuing Holocaust that we are experiencing. It's about challenging British foreign policy. It's also about being spokespersons and representatives and raising up the banner of the reparations movements around the world, so that when Britain thinks it can go to any part of Africa, any part of the Caribbean, anywhere in the world and try and divide and rule us, that we hold up their historical and contemporary crimes. In particular, we are ensuring that we speak about and that we raise the banner of all the reparations movements around the world in relation even to our own. Why? Because many of us in the diaspora who have assumed all these pseudo-identities as Africans in Britain and in Europe and America and so forth, who are we? Where did we come from? Who are our family? Of which nation did we come out of Africa? So when we have these artificial boundaries, we have to also acknowledge that the crimes are still happening, not only to us in terms of legacies, this system, this whole world of global apartheid that we're living in, but also to our family. We know that in terms of enslavement, chattel enslavement, it was not just a diaspora experience. If we study our history correctly, we will know that chattel enslavement began on the continent, with Europeans chattelizing African people. Many parts of Africa had chattel enslavement before we were transported. And I'm not talking about what they say Africans were doing to each other, which we know is, just a whole nother story altogether. But we're talking about what Europeans did on the continent of Africa. We're talking about that making